Hey everybody, what is going on? HexLex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. So today I wanted to take some time to talk about the World Championship qualifiers for 2025 this past weekend, and also take a look at some of the top 100 decks from the qualifiers. This is something that I very frequently like to do after these, Duelist Cup style events, is see what decks did well, not only for the actual decks themselves, but also to see the list and see, what some of the best are teching. Now, of course, it is always important to remember that this style of format, the Duelist Cup style / World Championship qualifiers, is going to be different than Ranked Ladder in terms of deck building. Slightly, not hugely, but slightly. This format also does slightly affect what decks will perform well in it as opposed to a quote-unquote regular meta. A lot of this is due to the fact that these style of events are played out over one set weekend, 72 hours, and as such, it values prioritizing quick wins as well as just optimal builds in general. But yeah, let's just go ahead and keep taking a look. I'm over here on Road to the King. I really like looking at these lists on Road to the King as opposed to other sites because not only do they give you the deck list for the top 10 decks on their site, but they also give you external links to all of the lists as well, which we're going to be taking a look at some of these. This is really nice because it links to the actual players' social media and can oftentimes provide a lot of insight that you might not get on other sites. I also think it's really nice to credit the players themselves as well, not just in name, but also in so far as, again, just sharing more about the players and making their thoughts more accessible to everyone. I just really like this Road of the King when it comes to, again, taking a look at lists like these. But we're going to start with the pie chart here. So the top 100 decks, it's a pretty balanced pie chart, all things considered. Snake Eye is going to be at the top here with 25.9%, eating more of the pie chart than any of the other decks, but not by a lot, as Crystron is actually going to be following up with 18.9% representation. So this is something that I will definitely address immediately, is just how hard I personally slept on this deck. The reason that I end up underestimating Crystron, because I end up putting it in tier 3 during our last tier list, right? But I think the thing that I really underestimated, which I shouldn't have being a Master Duel, focused player, is the Millennium Engine. Of course, Millennium Engine into Zombie Vamp, it was going to be very prevalent with the Crystrons having such, graveyard reliant effects, right? And of course, we didn't see this really happen in paper play because the Millennium Engine isn't used much in paper play. This is, of course, due to time rules. In the TCG and OCG, you're going to get all your results from tournaments, which all have time rules, and as a result, a deck, or an engine rather, that requires you to pay 2,000 life points typically is not going to get used nearly as often as it does in a format where time rules are different insofar as they don't really care how many life points you've got, right? So that was where I really slept on Crystron, was the Millennium Engine. Of course, pretty much every single, I think literally every single Snake Eye engine here, or deck here, yes, actually did also play the Millennium Engine. So between these two being the top 2 decks, I definitely think the Millennium Engine is going to get hit. I would be surprised if it didn't. I could see Sengenjin and or Golem going to 1. It would also make sense to me that they would hit Millennium, not only because it covers both decks, but, they obviously don't want to hit Crystron with, not only the fact that the cards just came out, but also the archetype itself really doesn't need any limits or anything. It's not that powerful of a deck. I would definitely argue that it's the Millennium Engine that's more deserving of hits. Snake Eye might also see some hits as well. Could see Diabellstar potentially going to 1, but we'll have to see what ends up happening. Following Crystron, we have Blue Eyes at 15.3%, Atlantean at 8.1%, Tenpai Dragon at 7.9%, Branded at 6.5%, Minto at 5.4%, and others are going to make up 11.9%. But as always, Road to the King does provide a more detailed breakdown. Now, you'll notice some weird kind of decimal point numbers here, 20.67, and I do believe they explain this down here as well. But the idea behind the decimal points is that some players played multiple decks during their climb, and as such, each of those decks is counted, but just, as a more minor percentage. So the example they give here is that if somebody played Snake Eye, Blue Eyes, and Tenpai, it would give 0.33 rating to each of them. So that's why it's 20.67 Snake Eye. All of them played Millennium and Fiendsmith. One also played Kashtira. 14 Crystron, 13 of which were on Millennium, one of which was on Horus. 12.33 Primite Blue Eyes, then 6 Atlantean. 5.83 Tenpai, most of which were actually pure, only one of which was Sky Striker. Branded was 5.33, most of them playing Grass, one of which didn't. After that's 4 Memento, 2 Gimmick Puppet, 2 Melodious, 1 Fiendsmith Kashtira at tier limits, 1 Fiendsmith Yubel, 1 Kashtira Fiendsmith White Forest, 1 Millennium Punk Fiendsmith Goblin Biker. Don't worry, we're absolutely going to be taking a look at this list. 1 Super Heavy Samurai Melodious Draco Slayer, 1 Bestial, well, 0.5, but 1, represented Bestial Fiendsmith deck, and then, again, 1, but represented as 0.33, Super Heavy Samurai FTK. So, as the article also notes here, not everybody has made their decks known, but I think 78 out of 100 is good enough, I think, to start taking a look at these lists. So we're going to start with the top 10 because they are in the article themselves. And at the first place here, we've got Millennium Crystron, of course, piloted by Tasuku, who has definitely been overperforming, to say the literal least, when it comes to this style of event. But Millennium Crystron ended up taking first place, as mentioned, and that was definitely a surprise to me. Again, like I said, I definitely did end up sleeping on this archetype as a whole, like I mentioned, because I didn't factor in Millennium and how good going into Zombie Vamp would be for a deck like this. Which again, I should have kept the Millennium Engine more in mind, myself being a more MD-focused player. I fell into the trap that that a lot of people did, and one that I've actually said that people shouldn't in the past, which is, when looking towards Master Duel to see if a deck is going to be good, looking solely at the TCG and OCG to see how that deck performed there. Now, obviously, that's a good jumping off point in order to be able to, evaluate how good it's going to be. But there's always other factors you have to keep in mind when it comes to Master Duel. Usually, first and foremost, it's going to be a fact that it's its own format in terms of ban lists. But again, with the Millennium Engine, and this happened with Snake Eye as well, with the Millennium Engine in particular, it's again the fact that we don't have life point-based time rules. So we're far more okay paying 2 or 4k life points to get our play started than players in the TCG and OCG were, or are. You know what I mean. So yeah, first place Millennium Crystron. I was going to say the main deck DD Crow is pretty interesting, but we're also already playing Bestials, so this actually makes sense to me, right? Because I think I would always play Magnum Hut and Durastorm before I played a DD Crow in this format, but I also can understand wanting a little bit of flexibility in terms of how you banish from the graveyard, so like being able to DD Crow the inclusion seems like, definitely not a bad idea here. But yeah, in terms of like hand traps, like we're seeing Ghost Ogre, Nib, of course, a lot of the usual suspects here. It's funny because all in all, when it comes to, Millennium and Crystron, this seems like a fairly standard list, but again, I think a lot of other people, myself included, didn't really anticipate this style of deck doing as well as it did in this event. So yeah, that's kind of awesome, honestly. Really love to see it. And here in second place, we have Millennium Fiendsmith Snake Eye. So yep, Millennium still proving to be the best engine for the deck, which definitely makes a lot of sense to me. It's like I've always said, right? It's not that Azamina is bad. It's just that it's not as good as Millennium, because it is at the end of the day going to be a lot more susceptible to hand traps, right? The fact that if you're trying to start with Azamina plays, you have a huge choke point in the form of Mubra. If that gets hit with Valor, Ash Blossom, or Imperm, a lot of the time it's going to be really difficult for you to get your plays going again, and it's going to be, extremely difficult, if not impossible, to actually get your Ilya Sylvia negate. Whereas Millennium, like, whether you start with Millennium or Fiendsmith, your opponent's always going to be kind of rolling their eyes and being like, okay, well, do I even bother wasting any of my hand traps here? It's just not nearly as big of as a red flag as far as, like, hand trap bait goes. The same that kind of, again, Mubra puts up. But yeah, no, a fairly standard looking list here. I think the thing that's the most atypical about this list, honestly, in my opinion, is the multiple tracked, which doesn't make sense. I guess I'm just a little surprised that this person slightly valued, you know, starters over hand traps. Well, maybe not surprised, that's the wrong word. I guess I just tend to value hand traps a little more heavily. Like, I think we're only on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 hand traps, which when I'm playing Snake Eye, I usually am somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 14. But yeah, stuff like the second Fiendsmith's Tract is a direction that I wouldn't necessarily go in myself, but of course I'm not the one out here getting second place in the World Championship qualifiers, so you know, I'm not trying to say that it's supposed to like, well, I would have done it differently. I'm just more noting the differences and, you know, what makes the difference of a championship build. Also, 3 Droll and Lockbird makes so much sense here, right? Because Snake Eye is a deck that can play through it so easily, then I think that you should be maining 3 Droll and Lockbird if you're on a deck like this. I've been doing this with Sprite myself lately, because Sprite just does not care about Droll and Lockbird. You have 2 searches, Blue and Jet, and you really don't care about missing the second one. So, like, yeah, just jamming 3 Droll and Lockbird in any deck that can play through it as an out to max C. Of course, something that people have been doing, but it's worth not noting just not just the amount of hand traps, but the amount of each individual hand trap as well, I think is interesting. Because I think a lot of people would be like, oh, you know, Fuelos is maxi number 2. Why would I just max out on that first? But, you know, there are reasons to weigh other hand traps first and foremost. So, no Gamma, I think, is worth noting. A lot of the Millennium Fiendsmith Snake Eye builds we've seen in, like, Rating Duels top 10 or Duels Cups recently were on Gamma a lot, but I don't see it here. I don't think we see it in a ton of the Snake Eye builds, which, again, I think is interesting. Extra deck is pretty standard. Alright, so this person played Millennium Crystron, looking pretty decently similar to the last list. And on top of that, they are... Oh, so they played 2 different variants of Millennium Crystron. And we can already spot one of the main differences between these builds is 2 DD Crow. So if I had to guess, this build with 2 DD Crow, and it also looks like this build is including 2 Ghost Ogre, where this one does not play Ghost Ogre. This one looks like it's probably more geared towards the mirror match, right? If I had to guess. Again, to me, the difference between DD Crow and Bestials would be being able to banish the Inclusion, which does have a graveyard effect. On top of also, of course, like Branded, being able to banish Branded Fusion is often very good. There are more scenarios where DD Crow is good, but I have to imagine this was one of the main ones that this person had in mind, right? Probably the same thing with Ghost Ogre, same deal. Extra decks, I think, are pretty much the same. I'm trying to playing spot the difference between them here. And I really don't see too much of a difference. Yeah, it looks like they're both playing like the Stardust Dragon and everything. It was just a matter of like the hand trap text and all that kind of fun stuff. Alright, so we got another Millennium Fiendsmith Snake Eye list, also playing triple Droll. Again, makes complete sense. I think the last build was also playing Pilgrim Reaper as well. Or no, it wasn't actually. Okay, but this one is. So, Pilgrim Reaper is quite interesting alongside Zombie Vamp. We saw in previous Rating Duel top 10s that it was the trend to switch over to 3 original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye, which is, I think this is a lot of the reason why this card even got limited, is the fact that, you know, when it was at 3, it's really easy to mill it with something like Pilgrim Reaper and or Zombie Vampire, and then have searches from there. Here, it looks like we're actually still just doing that, which honestly does make sense to me, especially factoring in this, right? Let's say you open Millennium cards and like 4 hand traps, just 4 non-engine. I could see a world where you're going into Zombie Vamp, and if you're doing that with the 2 level 8s and then the Golem up, you can then link into Moon of Closed Heaven after you Zombie Vamp, and then dump Pilgrim Reaper after that. So, yeah, original Sinful Spoils is only at 1, but also you're milling 10 cards. So you have I think you have a pretty decent shot to hit it if you really want to go all in on trying to mill your one of. Now, I don't know if that's something that you would always do, or if that's the reason why Pilgrim Reaper is here. I don't think it's here probably for that specific reason, but I was kind of, I guess, hypothesizing why I think this would still be good. I mean, obviously it is still good. Build did well, but just trying to disseminate the build as always here. Otherwise, the rest of it looks fairly standard. I noticed the last build was also playing both Nightmare Phoenix. Oh, no, it wasn't only playing Nightmare Phoenix. This was playing both Nightmare Phoenix and Sunlight Wolf. I was going to say, usually you play one or the other, but you can play both as well. Yeah, it's just interesting what people choose to make room for in these extra decks. I always find that kind of fascinating. Alright, so here in 5th place we have Primite Blue Eyes, rocking the Bingo Machine Go. It's funny because I saw a lot of people when Sage and Maiden each got semi-limited, playing more copies of Bingo Machine Go or slotting in more copies of Map in order to compensate. But looking at this build here and a lot of other ones that I've seen that have been having a lot of success lately, most people don't really seem to be doing that necessarily. I understand the thought process, right, of like, oh, I'm losing out on starters, let me one-to-one replace them for cards that replace starters. But this is also why I don't like editing decks. I more prefer just delete the deck and then rebuild it from scratch. Because I think when it comes to rethinking your ratios, you don't always have to replace things one-to-one, right? Like, just because Sage and Maiden get semi-limited doesn't mean you have to always just sub in a direct card to replace them. But I do think that it's worth looking at just reevaluating your ratios, like I said, right? And again, this is why whenever I deck build and I want to update a deck, I don't edit it, I just completely delete it and start over from scratch. But all in all, this is a fairly standard Blue Eyes build. Looking pretty solid there. Extra deck has literally everything you would expect in it. Here's another Snake Eye build. This one's on Chase instead of Temple, so that you can have the Maxi optional play to go into the Betrayal. I have a lot of people ask me, why would you play the Chase over the Temple? And that is the reason, because it gives you a play under Maxi. Again, 3 Droll. This one's also playing 3 Fuelos. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, otherwise it's fairly standard. Oh, here we go. Here's something that is a little bit different here. Saryuja Skuldred. From what I understood, I think somebody was saying that this can play well into, like... What was it actually? Shoot, now I'm remembering. No, I was gonna say plays well into like 60 card going second decks, but that was a different tech from a different deck I'm thinking of. I did see a post as to explaining why this person is playing Saryuja Skuldred, but I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. You know, honestly, you can just click the link here and find out. I might just end up doing that here. Let me see if they posted as to why they played the Skuldred. Okay, here we go. Helps with the initial activation rate, also acts as a buffer when there's excess link value, which is great. You know what? I can actually understand that, because there are a lot of times when you're playing Snake Eye and you're just super popping off that you end up with a fair amount of extra bodies. It's one of the only combo decks I've played where you actually, somewhat regularly, if you don't get interrupted, will have more bodies than you need. So actually, that does make sense to me. It's these kind of texts that I find really fascinating. And again, this is why I love Road of the Kings articles, again, as opposed to how some other websites do it. I love that they give the link to the person's social media, specifically the post they pulled the list from, so you can get that direct insight. I think that is so cool. I think more sites should do that. All right, so Tempai. We got Tempai here, and this build is not playing Sky Striker. There was one in here that is playing Sky Striker, but for the most part they weren't, which was a little bit surprising because I've noticed that a lot of the decks on the Tempai deck specifically on ladder end up being Sky Striker. So to see without Sky Striker, not just in this build, but pretty much across the board is a little bit, not extremely, but a little bit surprising. This person played quite a bit of variety of board breaker tools here, like the one of well, Feather Duster is at 1, but one of Change of Heart, one of Red Reboot, one of Talents, one of Tack. Even the one of Gold Sark, like not even playing 2 copies, but of course we're still playing the Blaster for it, which I think is really weird. But again, I mean, it did well enough. The Gamma Seal too. You know, I do understand wanting to have a variety of responses though, when it comes to playing in a format like this. And extra deck is looking fairly standard. Alright, so this person played Primite Blue Eyes with the 1 Bingo Machine Go. Only playing 2 Dominus Purge. This person played 2 Drill Beam, which is really interesting. They also played Snake Eye, but I want to talk a little bit about the 2 Drill Beam here for a sec. So, they also played a Neo Kaiser Seahorse, which I'm not going to lie, I always forget this card exists. But second Drill Beam. So this is something that I've seen some Fiendsmith control decks do, and occasionally Primite Blue Eyes, but I really don't think that most builds need a second Drill Beam, but I could understand specifically if you're like this high up in, you know, the World Championship qualifiers. I think it's pretty easy to get in a situation where people like, one might recognize that you're on Primite Blue Eyes. I guess they don't display your username, but even like play patterns, it's not that difficult oftentimes to pick up pretty quickly on what your opponent might be on. And that makes it really easy for your opponent to prepare for Drill Beam. A lot of people, you know, will be planning for very specific cards when they get to that level of competitive play. And Drill Beam is certainly one that's going to be on a lot of people's mind. So I can understand wanting to have the second Drill Beam in case your opponent outs your first one, or maybe is more of like a Silver Bullet card. I'm just spitballing and guessing that's the reason as to why there's two here. But here's a Snake Eye build, 3 Droll again, makes total sense. And otherwise fairly standard. 2 Nib, which isn't always standard, but Nib is really good right now. Oh yeah, the extra deck for this Primite Blue Eyes deck had the Virtual World Shen Shen in it, as well as the Trishula. Trishula, of course, is a Crimson Dragon target for your level 9s. The Shen Shen, I've actually seen some Blue Eyes builds do this. The idea is that if they get hand trapped, like, if Blue Eyes gets hand trapped a lot of the time, it can only go into 1 Spirit Dragon, which is, like, fine, but not super ideal. So I've seen some other Blue Eyes builds where if they get hand trapped when they go to make a level 9 Synchro, instead of it being the 1-of Spirit Dragon, they'll go into Shen Shen and kind of try to floodgate their opponent out. Shen Shen is basically D-Barrier, or not D-Barrier, but D-Fissure, Dimensional Fissure, but only from the field. So, yeah. I've seen this before. I've encountered this on ladder before. Alright, and then in 10th place here, we have Memento. Pretty standard looking list overall. Fuelos made room for that as one of their primary hand traps of choice, which makes sense, I guess, because this really can't play through Droll, so you can't really play Droll. I mean, you can play through Droll. It's really hand dependent for Memento. Most of the time, what you lose out on access to is your field spell if you get Drolled in Memento. You could still make a really solid board under Droll, but losing out on the field spell, and you also lose out on your fusion search, those do actually matter, though. So, yeah, this person playing Droplet, not Super Poly. We're playing Paradise. I think every Memento build from the World Championship qualifier was on Paradise Smasher, and I thought before that Memento had a dedicated combo line to Paradise Smasher. It's actually not that difficult of a deviation. There was a YouTube comment that mentioned this, and I wanted to bring it up as well. It's not that hard to deviate from the standard combo line to summon Paradise Smasher. It really doesn't necessarily need its own dedicated combo line. So, again, it makes sense to have just like that kind of out. Oh, this was the card I was thinking of earlier. This is what people who were playing Memento were saying. If they were up against a 60-card deck, or if they were up against a deck that let them go first. Basically, if they thought there was a good chance of encountering board breakers, they would go into Paradise Smasher instead of a standard Memento combo to attempt to play around that kind of stuff. So that's what I was thinking of earlier. So again, Road to the King here only shows the top 10 list on the site, but provides links for pretty much every other deck they have listed here. So I'm not going to click through every single link, but I do want to check out some of the more interesting decks, and we'll check out like some of these ones that are, you know, pretty close down from 10th and so on. So let me go ahead and pop open these next few decks in a new tab or new tabs, and we'll take a look at them here. Okay, so I definitely wanted to talk about Jonas. Oh, if I can, there we go. Jonas's Snake Eye list here, because Jonas was on Rextremend and said Rex was the MVP. Rextremend and Ognum Day. Also playing Fiendsmith in Paradise, and also on a 46-card build. But I think this is really, really interesting. Again, it's so easy to kind of have this take of like, oh, Snake Eye got top cut. That's so, you know, uninteresting. And I completely understand that. And of course, I think it's valid too, right? You face against a lot of Snake Eye decks on ladder. You don't really think they're that interesting. Again, completely understandable. I really like Snake Eye, so I think that it is interesting personally. But I think even if you like don't super value Snake Eye as a deck, it's worth just checking out the decks to look at these deck building choices, because it really makes you appreciate like how nuanced each individual list is. Like you see 25.9, I think it was, percent Snake Eye lists in Top Cut, and it's easy to see that as a monolith, but these lists are so different from each other. And this one, of course, is one of the most standout ones so far. Again, with the Ognum Day and the Rex Tremend, and we got Magician Souls in here as well. Cash Package, triple Nibiru, 46 card deck overall. I think this list is sick. Atlantean also did see a fair amount of tops, and we saw it in 13th and I think 14th place as well. So this is the Sekka's Light build, which has definitely been gaining a lot of popularity recently. I imagine because it did so well, in the WCQ. Yeah, a lot of the time I run into Atlantean nowadays on ladder, it ends up being the Sekka's Light build. Still on the Lay Virtue Dragon, even without the Virtue stream, which I think is really interesting. I guess just to have a Bahamut Shark target. I know Lay Virtue Dragon can do things other than search the stream. I just don't remember what off the top of my head, but... And then this, yep, Quantal. Quantal was also on the Sekka's Light variant of Atlantean. Also playing Lay Virtue Dragon without the Lay Virtue stream. Ah, I see, okay. So it can add stuff back from the graveyard. Makes sense, makes sense. Alright, what else do we have here? This one is one of our branded lists. Or not one of our, but just one of the branded lists that got top. Triple Lava Golem. Triple Lava Golem. Again, that's the kind of thing that like is so atypical about deck building. And again, like I said at the top, it is worth keeping in mind that deck building and also what decks do well overall is going to be a little bit different in this style of meta, as opposed to, regular ranked ladder. But yeah, triple Lava Golem. Otherwise, this list looks fairly standard. I think this one, was also branded. Grass branded on 52 cards, not quite full 60. And then what else do we have here? Here's another Snake Eye list. This one does look fairly standard. Actually, it is playing the Banshee. And you might be wondering, well, why is it playing Banshee? It's not playing the Chorozo, Lina, and it's only playing one Lacrima. Well, that's because of Fuelos. And, again, this deck often just does not need its normal summon at all. So... with this, if you open an extra Fuelos, you can just use your Fiendsmith stuff if you open with like Engraver or Tract or something, and then just go into the Infernal Flame Banshee. And you might think like, well, isn't that kind of like a specific kind of opening hand? And it's like, yeah, that is, but at the same time, you gotta figure if you don't open a hand like that, you probably just open to Snake Eye stuff, so you don't need to worry about that anyway. Skuldred in this one too. Wow, look at that. That was not a one-off thing for that one Snake Eye list. It looks like Skuldred is really just kind of taken off here. I used Millennium Snake Eyes deck. I think it placed around 19th. This one didn't get Gold Icon. Skuldred is very strong, contributing to the stability of the initial movement. I'm guessing that means like combo. The initial combo and drawing triggers that lead to an upswing. So cool, so cool. Because like again, it's really easy to think of a deck like Snake Eye and think it's like boring, solved, same, everybody's using the same list, but no, we're like people are still out here innovating. This list also on Skuldred. So yeah, that's just becoming a very popularized tech. It's fascinating too that you'll see it crop up in like one event. It makes me wonder if it's like, did people like just all arrive at that conclusion at the same time? Did they see each other doing it, you know, as they were laddering? Is it some combination of the two? Oh, it's just cool to think about. Okay. So there were a couple of other lists that I wanted to take a look at in particular here. Let me close these so I don't mix up my tabs. Okay, we've seen Atlantean, we've seen Crystron. Okay, so this person had the Bestial Fiendsmith control. It's gonna be this list right here. Of course, they did also play Snake Eye with triple attack. It's kind of funny. Playing the cash cards as well. But this was the only Fiendsmith control deck in the top 100. Which, it's really easy to think, oh, so Fiendsmith control just isn't good anymore. Which is absolutely not the case. I think Fiendsmith control is absolutely still a lower tier 1, upper tier 2 deck. But again, you gotta remember the format that we're in. And the thing about Fiendsmith control, from my experience playing it, is that it doesn't always have the most well-defined game plan. As in, you don't have, like... You don't always have a, like, super streamlined turn 1 combo that'll just win you the duel if it goes through. Nor do you always have the most streamlined OTK line that'll just win you the duel on the spot if you go second. It's a deck that, well, it's a control deck, right? So it's going to require a lot of nuance. And that doesn't make it a bad deck. It just doesn't make it a good deck for this kind of event. So this is the exact thing when I mentioned that, hey, you know, you might not always see the same meta 1-to-1 between Ranked Ladder and Duelist Cup style events. One thing I do think is pretty interesting about this list is that there's no Primite stuff. It's only Fiendsmith and Bestial, which usually if people only do 2 of the 3, in my experience, they tend to only do Primite and Fiendsmith. So I think this definitely changes how I think about the deck. Like, I definitely would love to try a variant like this. It's got so many hand traps, too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Not even counting the Bestial monsters. If you count those, it's 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25! Somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 to 25 hand traps. That is insane. That's so good. Yeah, there were a decent amount of Blue Eyes lists. This is the one that got 18th. We saw a couple of them in the top 10 as well. Here's one that got 18th, was also playing Neo Kaiser Seahorse. This person did actually put in another Bingo Machine Go to sort of compensate for the semi-limiting of the, 2 of our starters here. But pretty standard looking list here. Alright, there was a deck in here. Yes, this one. I am so excited to see this list here. Millennium Punk Fiendsmith Goblin Biker? Yes, please. Alright, here we go. Oh, look at this list. Look at it, it's so cool. Oh, I want to try this so badly. We might play this later today, actually. 3 Sing Engine, 1 Rising Scale, 3 Foxy Tune, Magnum Hut, Baldrake. Baldrake instead of Druid Swarm, that's so interesting. Got 2 Gone Wild, 3 Golem, Fiendsmith Package, Fuelos. Goblin Biker stuff is 2 Doug Charger, 1 Sploder, 1 Mean Merciless, 1... I don't remember what that one's called. Rev Boomer or something like that? Speedward Package, Xayamines. Ah, this deck is so cool. I can't get over how cool this list is. Even playing the Meteoriactor rank 3. That is so cool. And again, I really appreciate Road of the King for having all these links directly to the players' social media profiles themselves. Gimmick Puppet? Oh, I didn't mean to click on it. I meant to open a new... Oh, I did open a new tab. Good. I mean, Gimmick Puppet's not a list I'm super interested in, but there were a few of them in Top Cut. Again, this is something I bring up every time we see Gimmick Puppet in, like, any regard, but it's really easy to look at this and be like, well, how has this not been hit in Master Duel yet? But when it comes to Master Duel specifically, Gimmick Puppet ends up being very self-regulating in that even within a format like Duelist Cup or ranked, or not ranked ladder, a format like Duelist Cup or World Championship Qualifiers, which takes place over a weekend, it's its own internalized meta because there's so many games being played, so many more than we played in a weekend over the course of a paper tournament, right? That the meta within and of itself is constantly evolving. So if a bunch of gimmick puppet lists start creeping up towards the top cut, you know, not even in a dominant sense, but like, you know, more than would be expected, players are going to start en masse teching stuff like DD Crow to counteract them. We've even seen DD Crow in some of these lists here. I don't think it was for Gimmick Puppet specifically. I think it was more for just, I guess, maybe that among other decks. But long story short, I think that Gimmick Puppet ends up being, like, again, very self-regulating when it comes specifically to this kind of format, which I think is really cool. I would definitely love to see another Memento list here for sure. So this one was 40 cards. Usually Memento lists are like, I have trouble getting them below 42, but this person's right at 40. Rocking the Super Polys. Oh, what is this? I don't know what, I wonder what this fusion monster is. Got Rex Tremend as a Super Poly target. On Paradise Smasher. Triple Grand Entrance. Alright, what else? There's Melodious. I'll show this off for folks who are interested in this. I don't play Melodious myself, but still cool, of course, as always, that this got top cut. Wow, this person's got a lot of royals. Holy. This person wailed for Melodious. Also, done a lot of 3-ofs of archetype stuff. I mean, I think Melodious does archetype lock, I think, on some of his cards, so that would make sense, but got the Heralds as well. Alright, we're just going to take a look at maybe a couple more lists here. See if there's anything interesting. Ubel, we'll take a look at the Ubel list here. I think this was the only one in top cut. Triple Grave Scorber. Triple Droll playing the Gamma. Double Tracked. Extra deck looks pretty standard. Oh, here's Horus Crystron. So this was the one Crystron list that actually did not use Millennium stuff. So if Millennium stuff doesn't end up getting hit, like I suspect it might, you might want to pivot over to this engine instead to play the Horus cards. Which again, makes sense. It has the ability to go into Zombie Vampire and also can pitch stuff from hand. I have seen some people speculate that Zombie Vampire might be getting banned. And I think that would be a misstep. I think that it really should probably just be either Sengenjin and or Golem. Probably Sengenjin first, but Sengenjin and or Golem getting limited. I would definitely do that before banning Zombie Vampire for 2 reasons, right? One, Zombie Vamp is, you know, important for zombie strategies as well. But I think even more than that, more importantly, is the fact that Millennium Engine is still crazy good without Zombie Vampire. Like, yeah, it probably doesn't get played in Crystron nearly as often, but it absolutely is 100% still played in Snake Eye every single time, and really is going to keep presenting the same kind of, like, I guess issue, if you want to call it that, when it comes to the Millennium Engine of, like, you know, if there's a decent rank 8, you better believe that you can just jam this engine and get it out for free. And if it's not an extender like Zombie Vamp, it's going to be something like number 90 to help insulate your combo line. If not, you know, you're just not playing both, right? So, again, I don't know. I could see Zombie Vampire getting banned, but I do think that for me, I think Sengenjin and Golem both should go to 1. I think that's personally the direction to take, but that's my own 2 cents. Alright, let's see here. Anything else I want to take a look at before we wrap up this video? Ah, yes, there's, of course, this is the eternal mainstay of any Duelist Cup style format. There's always going to be the Super Heavy Samurai Melodious Draco Slayer deck that does well. The new Penned pile. Yeah, Pen Magicians really aren't... I mean, I guess, you know, we do have the... what do you call it? This guy. this guy here. This pen magician is here, but it's mostly just pen to slop now. Yeah, not even so much just pen to magicians, but okay, I think that's going to go ahead and do it. So, for the YouTube video, that is. I'm going to link this in the description below. Again, highly encourage checking out this Road to the King article here. But for the YouTube video, that is going to do it. Thanks for watching. But for those of us watching on the live stream, I am going to keep going. And if you're interested in catching any of these videos that I record live, you can either subscribe here on YouTube or go over to twitch.tv/HexLexLive and follow and or sub over there, because I do multi-stream on both platforms. Also, if you want to see the VODs and finished videos early, definitely make sure to join as a member here on YouTube so that you get early access to all the content I put out. But that'll do it for now, so we're going to move on to our outro. Hey everybody, HexLex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/HexLex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is HexLex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.